The story begins with empty cartons of tomato juice scattered across the dimly lit room, the curtains drawn tight against the daylight. Among them sits a pale-skinned vampire, her fangs glinting in the gloom, her stomach growls. Overwhelmed by hunger, she begins to cry. The young man, absorbed in his game, barely glances at her and tells her to stop. She informs him that she has run out of tomato juice, and her very existence is now in danger. She continues to wail in hunger, and growing increasingly annoyed, he tells her to go drink a stranger's blood since it would be fine as long as she does not get caught. The suggestion leaves her stunned. The thought of drinking someone's blood without their consent feels deeply immoral, and she refuses to do it. He then asks if she has never sucked anyone's blood before, to which she joyfully responds that she has not. She only wants to drink the blood of the person she loves. She explains that the taste of a loved one's blood is said to be incomparable, sending shivers through the body upon simply meeting them, a belief she learned from reading shoujo manga. Before she can elaborate further, she notices that he has already hung up on her. As a vampire, she dreams of falling in love with a human and making them the first person whose blood she drinks. Determined to present herself in the most captivating way possible, she takes a picture in a striking pose. After carefully editing the image, she posts it online. The flood of likes and retweets fills her with joy. The more her craving for attention is satisfied, the less intense her hunger feels. Since she lacks confidence for never having tasted blood before, she constantly seeks distractions. This leads her to immerse herself in beauty care. She comments on cute clothes, makeup, and hairstyles, and when she first posted a picture, the response exceeded her expectations. For the first time, she feels that her existence as a vampire is being accepted. Smiling, she reassures herself that she is the cutest in the world once again today. Spending her days off in the online world, she searches for trends that could go viral. She comes across a beautifully crafted cake and immediately thinks that taking a selfie with it will surely gain attention. She joyfully posts the picture and prepares to eat the cake. Just then, a tweet notification catches her eye. Expecting another wave of praise, she eagerly checks it, only to find an insult instead. Her excitement vanishes, replaced by anger and flustered frustration. Outraged, she declares that she will find out who the person is and expose his face online. Assuming the role of a stalker, she sets out to track him down. According to the information she has gathered, he wears a blazer and his last name is Sasaki. Confident that she will catch him on his way home, she roams the streets. As she walks, she suddenly bumps into a boy. Fuming with anger, she demands to know what he wants, but the moment she looks at him, she freezes in place, stunned by his appearance. Flustered, she hurriedly asks if he is all right. He replies bluntly that he is fine, and she immediately notices that he matches the description of the person she is searching for. Before she can scold him, he remarks that she looks much better in person. The unexpected comment leaves her momentarily speechless. Without another word, he walks away. Annoyed by his indifference, she calls after him, pointing out that he has not even apologized. Suddenly, an unfamiliar sensation runs through her body, a shiver just as described in the manga. Meeting one's destined lover is said to send shivers through every fiber of the body. Staring at him, she asks if she can suck his blood. After deciding that she would only drink the blood of the one she loves, she finally meets her prince and falls in love. Standing at his doorstep, she waits as he opens the door, staring at her in confusion. He asks who she is, and upon realizing that she is the girl from earlier, he immediately attempts to close the door. She stops him just in time, explaining that she came specifically to see him. Suspicious, he demands to know how she discovered his address. She responds nonchalantly, explaining that it was a simple process. First, she found out which school he attended, then asked a girl from his class for his student number. After that, she located his bicycle in the school's shed and placed a GPS tracker on it, which ultimately led her to his home. Stunned by her explanation, he tells her that her actions are undeniably creepy. She pouts, calling him mean, and as he places a hand on her shoulder, he realizes that she is genuinely upset. Aware that he had mocked her earlier, he assumes she must still be angry about it and asks if she wants an apology in return. She agrees immediately and, without hesitation, throws her arms around him in a hug. Confused and flustered, he pushes her away and demands to know what she is doing. Just as confused, she kindly reminds him of his promise to do anything for her, but he remains steadfast in his refusal, his tone resolute. Little did he know, all she desired was a mere sip of his blood. Oops, forgot to mention she's a vampire. Seeing the bewilderment on his face, she admits that sipping on her soulmate's blood has been her lifelong dream. Convinced he's her Prince Charming, she recalls the spine-tingling moment she first caught his gaze. Understanding that the idea might seem frightening from his perspective, she reassures him that it will be far more pleasurable than painful. Beaming, she eagerly asks if he understands. Without answering, he rises to his feet, suspecting that this is all an elaborate performance for social media. He reminds her that there is no need to continue acting when she is in the real world and insists that she keep her bizarre role-play confined to the digital space. Dumbfounded, she watches as he turns away. When she asks where he is going, he casually replies that he is heading to the store to buy a mobile game card, firmly instructing her not to follow him. Naturally, she follows him anyway. At the store, she proposes an idea. He should become a vampire. She enthusiastically explains that a single bite has a 99% chance of turning him immortal. He completely ignores her. Undeterred, she continues, painting a vivid picture of his potential future. Only needing to sip on blood for all of eternity, his complexion would transform into a ghostly white, ensuring eternal youth. Yet he refuses to even glance her way. Baffled, she plots a new scheme. Faking a stumble, she puts on an act in hopes of capturing his interest. But once more, he brushes her off. Frustrated, she demands to know why he's quick to assist a stray cat but can't spare her a second glance. She warns him that if he falls from the tree he is climbing, he could very well die. Finally, he responds, revealing that he does not believe living a long life equates to happiness and has absolutely no desire to become a vampire. Moments later, he manages to rescue the cat, but just as he does, the branch beneath him snaps, sending him plummeting toward the ground. Before he can hit the earth, she swiftly catches him in her arms. Smugly, she reminds him that she had already warned him. If not for her being a vampire, the situation could have ended badly. However, she quickly realizes that he is not moving. Panicking, she checks on him and finds that he has lost consciousness. Without hesitation, she carries him away. When he regains consciousness, he finds himself in an unfamiliar location. She greets him cheerfully, but startled by the situation, he screams. Confused, she asks why he reacted that way, and he incredulously questions whether they are in a public park. She informs him that carrying him all the way there was no easy task, and sarcastically asks if he expected her to fly, pointing out that she cannot do so due to a lack of blood. Still convinced that she is engaging in some kind of role play, he questions why she went to the trouble of bringing him here. She simply replies that she could not leave him behind. He reminds her that he never even tried to help her. Smiling, she calls him an idiot and declares that she cannot let him die. For the first time, he is caught off guard by her sincerity. Calling her strange, he decides that in order to settle his debt to her, he will buy her something from the store. He tells her to come along, and her face instantly lights up with joy. Without hesitation, she requests tomato juice, much to his disgust. With her mission a success, she quietly thanks the cat for its unexpected assistance. Later that evening, as he scrolls through social media, his eyes widen in shock. Staring back at him is a picture of her posing with the same cat, the post already going viral. At the very least, she certainly knows how to capture attention. Sasaki inquires if she's a bit of a loner, but she sips her juice in silence. He points out her daily routine of popping in for juice, barely chatting, then vanishing like a juice-loving phantom. She fires back that she's got a squad. Unimpressed, he notes her Instagram full of selfies and game chatter and declares she must be a solo act. She protests, but he gives a knowing grin. He's the sole VIP on her friend list. With a playful jab, he suggests her life must be sad. Stunned, she freezes as he continues, saying that he had been thinking about how none of her followers are actually her friends either. Flustered, she suddenly blurts out that she has plans to meet a friend this Saturday. Without giving it any more thought, she stands up and leaves. The truth, however, is that she doesn't have any real friends. The only person she interacts with is merely a gaming buddy. As she scrolls through her feed, she notices a post about an offline meetup. At the gathering, she introduces herself to the group, and they all welcome her warmly. She inwardly celebrates, believing she has nailed the introduction. Since this is a gathering of influencers, the attendees are a diverse mix. But to sum it up, they all embody the traits of typical modern-day women. She wonders if there is anyone here she could genuinely befriend. Just then, one of the girls comments about the unpleasant stench of tomatoes, and she is left stunned. The person speaking is none other than the famous Instagrammer from Minato, Fuyuko. With a sharp tone, she remarks that she went out of her way to wear such a beautiful dress and hopes it doesn't get dirty. She boasts about currently branding herself as a bluish winter beauty and expects others to understand the aesthetic. Fuyuko then sneers, saying it makes sense why Miss Vampire isn't popular and her selfies are always gloomy, and her photos are clearly edited. She flaunts a designer bag she ordered from Paris, and Miss Vampire wonders why Fuyuko is so determined to put her down when their follower counts are nearly the same. Fuyuko then coldly tells her that she is in the way and that her presence will prevent the post from going viral. She orders her to move aside. Stunned and increasingly irritated, Miss Vampire realizes she cannot get along with this girl. Sasaki's words replay in her mind, reminding her that now is not the time to weigh her options. Without hesitation, she finally breaks away from Fuyuko and is relieved to be rid of her. One of the girls in the group mentions that the night menu at a particular cafe is quite popular. Intrigued, Miss Vampire asks her to repeat what she said. The girl clarifies that she finds night cafes to be stylish and cool, making people's faces stand out even more in photos. Another girl chimes in, saying that the place is trending on TikTok and requires a reservation. Miss Vampire looks at them in confusion. One of the girls smiles and tells her that she is the fallen angel who has descended upon the world of the internet. Her aesthetic consists of uploading pictures with her favorite Nui-chan or posing in front of altars. Miss Vampire is puzzled by the term Nui altar, prompting the girl to explain it to her. Another girl introduces herself as Fuerun and casually mentions that she is always eating potato chips. Observing her, Miss Vampire immediately thinks that she too is an oddball. Curious, she asks if they have been to that cafe before, adding that she really likes the limited edition menu there. With a radiant smile, the angel-like girl suddenly reveals that she is a big fan of hers. Stunned, Miss Vampire is overwhelmed with joy. Without thinking, she throws her arms around them in a tight hug. The idea that someone could understand her to such an extent fills her with excitement. She calls the girl a genuine angel, and seeing both of their extravagant outfits and unique personalities, sincerely wishes to be friends with them. As the influencers gather for a group photo, Fuyuko turns to the three of them and coldly tells them to leave. Miss Vampire immediately questions why they should be excluded. Fuyuko explains that their outfits do not match the group's overall aesthetic, making it harder for their post to go viral. In situations like this, she says, it's best for everyone to be on the same level, and she doesn't think the three of them fit in with their community. She then pointedly asks Miss Vampire what she would do if her follower count dropped because of them. Miss Vampire, undeterred, asks why they can't simply take individual selfies with things they personally like. She demands to know what exactly she has done to inconvenience Fuyuko. With a condescending air, Fuyuko insists that she is merely offering advice. Annoyed, Miss Vampire stammers before finally retorting, what's wrong with liking things that speak to her, and she has no right to judge her. Fuyuko, visibly shaken by her words, falls silent before abruptly storming off. The rest of the influencers attempt to stop her, but she brushes them off and struts away. The girls standing next to Miss Vampire exchange puzzled glances. She apologizes for involving them in the drama, but they wave off her concerns with a casual, no worries girl. Just as she resigns herself to leave without making any new friends, the two girls surprise her by inviting her to hang out at a cafe. Her eyes sparkle with delight as she eagerly accepts, already imagining the look on Sasaki's face when she brags about her new pals. Meanwhile, Fuyuko is dumbfounded, blissfully unaware that the influencers she dissed were none other than the reigning queens of the influencer world, Himeka and Fuerun. Later, Himeka tells Vampire San that love requires a bit of strategy to succeed. She listens intently as Himeka goes on, confessing that while she admires her and enjoys watching her navigate romance, she can't stay silent any longer. Isn't it natural, she asks, to want the one you love to return your feelings? Fuerun chimes in, explaining that she is placing her bets on rarity. People only realize the value of something precious once it's gone. Right now, however, she has the same worth as cheap bean sprouts. Stunned, she gapes at the comparison. Himeka then delivers her final verdict, and she is banned from meeting him for the next week. Shocked, she freezes in place, while Fuerun advises that if pushing to the limit isn't enough, she should make him unable to go without her attention. A week passes, and when she finally visits Sasaki, she immediately notices that he looks unusually gloomy. Concerned, she asks what happened. She then inquires if he is sleep-deprived, and he explains that he has been plagued by nightmares, making it impossible for him to get proper rest. Her eyes light up with excitement as a thought crosses her mind. Could this be the result of her ignoring him? She speculates that he must have been lonely without her. Brimming with enthusiasm, she eagerly asks him about the dreams. but he only looks at her in confusion, wondering why she seems so happy. He replies that they were merely nightmares and casually mentions considering an exorcism. As he turns to leave, she asks where he is going, but he simply tells her to head back for today and walks away, leaving her baffled. That night, as he sleeps, another nightmare overtakes him. Lost in the terror of his dream, he suddenly hears someone calling out to him, and he jolts awake. As his vision clears, he sees her standing there, greeting him with a smile. Realization dawns on him, and without a moment's hesitation, he grabs her and hangs her from the window. Panicked, she yelps and pleads with him to wait, warning that she will fall if he lets go. He glares at her and demands to know what she is doing in his room. Flustered, she hurriedly explains that he had left the window open and she had come to help him with his nightmares. She excitedly reveals that she even brought several items, including eye masks and other stuff. His irritation only grows, and as he prepares to drop her, she lets out a desperate scream and frantically tries to stop him. Suddenly, she pauses, her gaze locking onto his, and she curiously asks if he happens to know the reason behind his nightmares. His expression shifts as he asks her what she means. She then inquires if something has happened to one of his family members, but he replies that nothing of the sort has occurred. At that, she gasps, her excitement reigniting as she concludes that the nightmares must be happening because of her. He stares at her in absolute disbelief as she eagerly explains her strategy of avoiding him for an entire week. Watching her with a mix of incredulity and amusement, he suddenly bursts into laughter. Shaking his head, he calls her excuse a pitifully poor tactic. He tells her that it has been a long time since he has met someone as gullible as her, adding that he never encountered anyone as remarkable as her back in high school. At his words, she confesses that she, too, wants to experience school life. He tells her that it isn't as incredible as she imagines, but she joyfully exclaims that if they had been classmates, it would have been amazing. She then begins listing all the things she would have done for him, making him lunch every day, for example. Growing nervous, he points out that she has clearly read too much shoujo manga. She excitedly continues, declaring that she would have confessed to him beneath the cherry blossoms. He sighs, shaking his head, and admits that if she had been a student at his school, it might have at least made things a little more interesting. Overjoyed, she seizes the opportunity and demands that he take her to his school, insisting that she wants to see it for herself. However, he immediately refuses. When she asks why, he flatly says that being seen with a self-proclaimed vampire would be too embarrassing. Yawning, he stretches and remarks that talking to her has made him feel sleepy. He then tells her that it's late and that she should head home. The next morning as he wakes up, he reflects on the previous night and sighs. Though the entire ordeal had been exhausting, he realizes with mild surprise that, for the first time in a while, he did not have any nightmares. Meanwhile, she announces that today's reward is this cannelle, eagerly anticipating it as she follows the given address. However, within 5 minutes, she finds herself completely lost. Bewildered, she looks around, wondering where it could be. Just then, someone walks past her, and her eyes are immediately drawn to the outfit the person is wearing. Stunned, she admires how cute it looks, curiosity piqued as she wonders where they got such a dress. That is when she notices a signboard in front of the cafe, announcing that they are currently hiring new maids. Without hesitation, she approaches the manager and asks him to let her work there. The manager reviews her resume briefly before rejecting her application outright. Taken aback, she demands to know why. He bluntly explains that hiring someone as suspicious as her would be out of the question, unless, of course, she has something that could change his mind. Determined, she puts on the maid uniform, and the moment he sees her, his expression shifts. He compliments her, stating that she looks fantastic in it. From the very moment she walked in, he knew she would be perfect for the job. Furthermore, discovering that she has a significant number of followers makes it an even better deal, and it's free advertising for the cafe. Without further delay, he instructs her to start waiting tables. She eagerly agrees, and he tells her that, as a test, she needs to draw on an omurice. He explains that their signature menu item is chicken omurice, and an essential part of her job is fulfilling customers' requests by drawing whatever they ask for. He elaborates that while artistic skill is important, what truly matters is making the customers feel cherished by showing effort. She nods in understanding, then proceeds to write Sasaki on the omurice. The manager is left speechless and questions why she chose a completely random name. With absolute sincerity, she responds that it is because she loves him. The manager sighs and tells her that no one asked for a confession. She stands there, dumbfounded. Deciding to move forward, he instructs her on the next step, and she immediately strikes a dazzling pose. He observes her in silence for a moment before deciding that they might as well give that a try next. He then takes an order and asks her to fetch the drinks, assuring her that it is the simplest task and even a newcomer should be able to handle it. She happily agrees and goes to retrieve them. However, when she returns, she cheerfully apologizes for the wait and presents the customers with tomato juice. The manager is left frozen in disbelief before quickly bowing in apology to the customers. As she continues working, it becomes apparent that she is completely incapable of handling any of her tasks properly. Eventually, the manager sighs in defeat, apologizing to the customers for keeping her around merely as a mascot. Turning to her, he asks if she can at least keep quiet. She huffs, complaining that standing around doing nothing is boring. Perplexed, he hands her a shopping list and instructs her to buy the necessary ingredients. She pouts, calling him mean and insisting that everything was going just fine for her. Looking at the list, she concludes that he will need more than just these items and decides to buy additional ingredients to save him the trouble. As she walks through the shopping district, a man suddenly approaches her, asking if she works nearby. He then casually comments on how cute she is. She glances at him briefly before ignoring him and walking away. However, he grabs her wrist, demanding that she not ignore him. Stunned and irritated, she glares at him, firmly stating that she is in the middle of work. As she prepares to use her sharp nails, another voice suddenly interrupts. "Run." Before she can react, someone grabs her hand and pulls her away. They weave through alleyways until they finally come to a stop. Panting, she turns to see her rescuer and is surprised to find that it is none other than Sasaki. Looking terrified, he clutches his chest and mutters that this kind of thing is terrible for his heart. Confused, she asks why he is here. He explains that he had been heading to the store when he saw the man harassing her. Seeing her unease, he tells her they can return another day and begins to leave. She remains frozen in place as his words sink in. He comments that tonight's band is pretty hardcore, and she blindly followed him without even checking. A beginner like her would get swallowed up in the crowd. He tells her to give up, but she stubbornly gets up and insists that she will go in. However, she fails immediately, proving him right. Undeterred, she continues trying, and he watches, eventually covering his face in embarrassment. After multiple failed attempts, he finally asks why she refuses to give up. She then reveals her true reason, that she wants to love all the things he loves. He is taken aback by her words, and as she makes another attempt, he mutters that she is an idiot. The receptionist, watching the scene unfold, teases him, saying that he has attracted quite a strange one. He sighs, calling her a nuisance, but then admits that she is a good girl. The receptionist notes that it has been a long time since she has seen him smile. When he asks if she said something, she simply smirks and playfully pushes him, telling him to enjoy himself. Miss Vampire calls out to him, and when he looks around, he spots her, fully immersed in the moment, enjoying the music. He is shocked by the sight. She soon returns to him, beaming, and exclaims that she had no idea a live house could be this fun. She is delighted that they now share something in common and eagerly drags him along. He sighs, telling her that the only thing he likes is music. At a burger shop, two girls discuss Miss Vampire. They note that she has recently changed her brand. Where she once exclusively posted pictures taken in cafes, she is now uploading images from live concerts. As they scroll through her footage, they observe how much she seems to be enjoying herself and wonder what might have caused this shift. Back at the concert, Miss Vampire calls out to Sasaki, asking if he is getting excited. A nearby man turns to Sasaki and remarks that she is calling him, but Sasaki, uninterested, replies that he does not know her and that she is far more into this than he is. She then comments on how popular today's band is and, upon glancing at the vocalist, acknowledges that he has good looks, but in her eyes, Sasaki is much cooler. Excitedly, she expresses her anticipation for seeing Sasaki perform with his own band. As she listens to a group of men talking about Sasaki's band, she overhears them saying that they have not performed in a while and that his partner is also absent. Shocked, she immediately wonders if Sasaki already has a woman in his life. The men, amused, tell her to calm down, explaining that it was a two-man band. Sasaki played the guitar while his partner was the vocalist. Relieved, she lets out a breath just as Sasaki appears. Rushing over to him, she excitedly suggests that they watch the next concert from the front row, insisting that it is not fun without him around. He scoffs, telling her to stop lying. She clearly had the time of her life. She protests, saying that it was fun, but at the same time, not fun. Puzzled, he frowns, unable to grasp her meaning. The receptionist then approaches and asks if she has brought her ID this time. Proudly, she replies that she has. The receptionist is surprised that she even owns one, but as she hands it over, both Sasaki and the receptionist stare at it in disbelief. Confused, Miss Vampire asks what is wrong. She explains that it is a profile card, something trending on social media, so she printed it out. The receptionist, bewildered, asks if this is supposed to be her ID, and she confidently confirms that it is. Sasaki, exasperated, tells her that there is no way such a thing would work. The receptionist then asks if she has a student ID, but Miss Vampire shakes her head. She is not attending school. Pressing further, the receptionist inquires whether she has a work ID or an insurance card, but she explains that vampires do not have such things. The receptionist is dumbfounded, yet she acknowledges that Miss Vampire is one of their most frequent visitors and expresses a desire for her to continue coming in the future. Sensing the concern, Miss Vampire reassures her that she is not a suspicious person. Sasaki takes a glance at the card, noting that it lacks a blood type, birth date, or even an address. Miss Vampire recalls what the receptionist had said moments ago, and for the first time starts to think that there really might be no way around this. Seeing her defeated expression, the receptionist sighs and decides to let it slide for now, telling her to make sure to bring a proper form of identification soon. Turning back to Sasaki, Miss Vampire calls out his name. Annoyed, he asks what she wants. She eagerly asks if he is currently in any bands. He immediately stiffens and demands to know who told her. She explains that a regular mentioned it, and she excitedly declares that she wants to see him perform. When he and his partner take the stage again, she will be there, cheering for them. At that moment, memories flash through Sasaki's mind. His expression darkens, and with a cold, detached tone, he tells her that it is none of her business. He quit ages ago. Without another word, he turns and walks away. As the concert begins, Miss Vampire remains lost in thought. Why did Sasaki stop playing? What happened to his partner after the band disbanded? These questions linger in her mind when suddenly she catches an unusual scent. A strange, pungent smell fills the air, and she wrinkles her nose in discomfort. Someone must have eaten garlic. Before she can react, a wave of weakness washes over her, and she finds herself unable to move. Sasaki, who had been brooding over his earlier reaction, realizes that he may have been too harsh. When he turns to check on her, he notices something is wrong. Her body sways unsteadily, her breaths growing shallow and erratic. Alarmed, he rushes toward her. Miss Vampire's vision begins to blur, and dizziness overtakes her. Struggling to breathe, she pants heavily before her knees give out beneath her. Just as she is about to collapse, someone catches her. A voice speaks, calm and steady, that she is looking pretty rough. Blinking weakly, she glances up and realizes that the one who saved her is none other than the vocalist from the band. He looks down at her with concern and asks if she is all right. Sasaki stands frozen, staring at the scene in stunned silence. She feels disoriented, unsure if she has somehow ended up on the stage. A sudden, unfamiliar scent causes her to instinctively shut her eyes, and in her confusion, she accidentally reaches out and grasps his hand. Realizing what she has done, she becomes flustered and quickly pulls away, apologizing before hastily fleeing the scene. If she lingers too long, someone might recognize her. In her rush, she momentarily forgets that her shoes have been ruined. When the realization sets in, she gazes down at them in despair and lets out a frustrated cry. The receptionist, noticing her distress, encourages her to cheer up, but she remains despondent. How could she? The shoes have been sold out everywhere, and no matter where she looks, she cannot find another pair. She cannot believe they got ruined simply because she tripped. Desperately, she wonders if she can repair them with glue. Sasaki approaches and asks if she is all right. Startled, she looks up at him and questions whether he had merely been watching from the sidelines. He admits that he was at first, but then he happened to notice that she was not doing well. She is taken back. Usually he keeps his distance. He glances down at her ruined shoes and remarks that she is fortunate only her heels took the brunt of the damage. If she had broken anything else, it could have been much worse. When she does not respond, he furrows his brows and asks if she is even listening. Still stunned, she blurts out that she was so shocked he was worried for her that her mind went completely blank. Irritated, he retorts that, of course, he would be concerned. He was planning to help her after all. Her eyes widen in surprise, and she asks if he truly intended to help her. With a sigh, he mutters that it turns out his help was not needed after all. A thought suddenly crosses her mind, and she momentarily forgets about her damaged heels. She clutches her head dramatically, pretending to still feel dizzy. Looking up at him with feigned weakness, she suggests that she might start feeling better if she were to suck some of his blood. Without missing a beat, he pulls out his phone, ignores her completely, and states bluntly that he needs to buy more tofu. Without another word, he turns and leaves. She stands there, momentarily stunned by his indifference, before sighing in defeat. Deciding to make the most of the situation, she pulls out her phone, thinking about taking a picture for her social media story. The receptionist notices and curiously asks if she also does social media. She proudly replies that she is an influencer. Intrigued, the receptionist asks if she has ever considered doing advertisements. Confused, she asks what that entails. The receptionist explains that influencers are sometimes hired to promote products or businesses. Without hesitation, she declares that she is willing to do it and asks for the details. With a sly smile, the receptionist informs her that she would need to promote their live house. Her enthusiasm falters, and she hesitantly asks if they do not have advertisements for makeup or beauty products instead. Leaning in, the receptionist whispers an enticing offer. She will compensate her and, more importantly, provide her with a live house pass that will grant her access to see Sasaki anytime she wants. Her eyes sparkle with joy as she eagerly accepts without hesitation. Just then, the singer from before makes his grand entrance. Taking a quick look at her, he charmingly inquires if she's a famous figure. Realizing his identity, she puts two and two together and realizes he's the lead singer from the band. Politely introducing himself as Ao, he graciously extends his greetings to her. As she listens to him speak, she notes that his voice is pleasant, and on top of that, he is handsome, talented, and part of a band. Before she can stop herself, she absent-mindedly praises him aloud, marveling at how impressive he is. He looks at her in astonishment before reminding her that he can hear everything she is saying. Embarrassed, she quickly composes herself, but he humbly insists that he is not deserving of so much praise. She then bets that he must have a huge following on social media. However, to her surprise, he admits that he is not involved in that kind of thing. She is stunned. Someone with his presence and talent could easily go viral with just a bit of luck. He chuckles and observes that she seems quite knowledgeable about social media. He then asks if she has ever considered becoming a singer, suggesting that with her voice, she could make it far in the industry. For a brief moment, she wonders if that is something she could actually do. Remembering the advertisement, she quickly shifts gears and asks to take a picture with him, explaining that she can use it as a promotional post. He agrees and she snaps a picture with him, feeling confident that the post will go viral. Sometime later, she rushes to Sasaki in a panic. He sighs and asks what she wants this time. Excitedly, she urges him to check her account. When he does, he sees that she has gained 5,000 new followers in an instant. As she expected, Ao blew up online. Thus, she successfully completes her first advertisement, and soon, the comments section fills with people inquiring about the mysterious vocalist in her post. A storm of comments floods her screen, accompanied by thousands of reactions, and the notifications show no sign of stopping. To her dismay, not a single one of them is about her. She notices a comment speculating whether she and Ao are dating, and she immediately stammers to herself, insisting that she likes Sasaki. Although she is pleased that the selfie went viral thanks to Ao, she cannot stand the idea of people assuming they are a couple. Frustrated, she decides to post another selfie, but once again, all the comments are fixated on Ao, demanding to know where he is. Her irritation builds, and she trembles slightly with frustration. Even though her popularity is skyrocketing, she cannot understand why she feels so stressed. Suddenly, a hand reaches out to her. It belongs to none other than Ao. Startled, she awkwardly asks if he has a performance today. With a teasing smirk, he questions whether she did not come for him this time. He then thanks her for the advertisement, to which she responds dryly, unimpressed by his gratitude. Ignoring her tone, he proposes that they collaborate once more, this time on stage, performing a duet. He insists that he always knew she must have a great voice and confidently declares that if they work together, they will create the perfect chemistry. He urges her to give it some thought. She remains at the edge of the crowd, lost in deep contemplation about the idea of going viral. Yet something about it unsettles her. She voices her thoughts, admitting that despite all the attention, she does not feel happy. Meanwhile, Ao steps onto the stage and announces that their final song will be Hunt. His voice separates itself from everything else around her, resonating deep within her mind, leaving her momentarily dazed. A small tremor runs through her, and in that moment, a familiar scent reaches her senses. Turning her head, she sees Sasaki standing beside her. He raises an eyebrow and asks why she is not at the front today. She simply replies that she did not feel like it. Finding her behavior unusual, he presses further. She eventually confesses that she feels like she is losing her mind. She has gone completely viral on social media, yet she cannot enjoy it in the slightest. Silence hangs between them until he finally breaks it. He remarks that, with Ao receiving all the attention, she must have felt overlooked. He then flashes a bright smile and calls her a simpleton. At that moment, the realization hits her: she did not receive any of the attention she had hoped for. Instead, everyone merely saw her and Ao as a couple, and nothing unfolded the way she wanted it to. She despises all of it. Taking a deep breath, she shifts her mood and brushes it off, declaring that it is not something worth getting upset over. Sasaki, dumbfounded, stares at her in disbelief. This level of concern about what others think is truly out of character for her. He shakes his head and wonders just how self-absorbed she can be. But regardless of what anyone says, her feelings remain unchanged. She casts a sidelong glance at him, her expression softening. Deep down, she knows the truth: she loves him. And one day she hopes to tell him. She praises Ao, and in an effort to help her advertise the live house, he comes over to film a video. As she watches him play, she comments on his fingers. Amused, he asks if she is complimenting him and thanks her with a smile. Even Sasaki, who rarely engages in such conversations, acknowledges Ao's skill. Surprised, she points out that it is rare to see him invested in things like this. Ao, appreciative of the praise, apologizes for disturbing him just before his performance. Curious, Ao asks Sasaki if he has ever played the guitar before. Sasaki responds that he did at one point. Excited, she suddenly hugs Sasaki and exclaims to Ao that he was once part of a band. Sasaki, unfazed, clarifies that he used to be but is no longer involved in it. Ao is amazed. Observing Sasaki's hands, he notes that it looks like he has been practicing lately. Caught off guard, Sasaki hesitates to explain, but before he can, one of Ao's bandmates calls him over for rehearsal. Getting to his feet, Ao bids them farewell, saying he will see them soon. She watches him leave and, deep in thought, decides that she needs to learn the guitar. Once she becomes skilled, she imagines she will be showered in Sasaki's praise. Annoyed, Sasaki tells her to cut her long nails, as they will get in the way. She immediately protests, saying she can't do that. Unbothered, he bluntly tells her to give up then. Unwilling to let go of the idea, she asks if there is any instrument she can play without cutting her nails. With a smirk, he suggests the harmonica. Confused, she asks what that is. Before he can answer, a girl appears and calls out to him. Both he and Miss Vampire shift their attention toward her. Suspicious, she narrows her eyes and immediately questions who the girl is. Sasaki, unimpressed by her reaction, turns the question back on her. The girl explains that she had been wondering what happened, as Sasaki and his partner had not performed any concerts lately. She also mentions hearing rumors that they had disbanded. Miss Vampire cuts in, demanding to know who she is, why she is speaking so familiarly with Sasaki, and what she is to him. The girl calmly introduces herself as a fan. She reveals that she started her own band because of him, admiring both his unique musical style and Miyamoto's vocals. Sasaki is taken aback by her words. With hopeful eyes, she asks if he can sign her guitar. However, he apologizes, explaining that he is no longer involved in music and that the band is over. Undeterred, she asks for a picture instead. Miss Vampire, standing beside Sasaki, suddenly notices the scent he is giving off, the one he always exudes when he feels anxious. Without hesitation, she grabs the girl's wrist and firmly tells her to leave Sasaki alone, as he is clearly uncomfortable. The girl, unwilling to back down, insists that this is her one chance to meet him and get to know him better. She claims that she understands his music and knows more about his past than anyone else, demanding that Miss Vampire not interfere. The atmosphere grows tense, and even the receptionist notices the rising heat in the air. Miss Vampire sighs, deciding to put an end to this in her own way. With a smug expression, she pulls out a collection of Sasaki's private photos. The girl freezes. The girl's eyes light up as she eagerly asks if she can have them. Miss Vampire refuses but smugly offers her one picture, for a price. Taking advantage of the situation, she presses the girl for information about why Sasaki left the band. The girl hesitates but eventually begins to explain. Sasaki, she reveals, was the band's composer, while Miyamoto was the vocalist. Together, their unit was called 38. Miss Vampire listens intently as the girl explains the meaning behind the name 38, amazed by the story. The girl continues, stating that since they were minors at the time, they were unable to perform live concerts. Despite this, they were well known among music fans and had been standing at the starting line of something great. Curious, Miss Vampire asks how things ended the way they did. The girl lowers her voice. She reveals that, according to rumors, Miyamoto simply stopped showing up one day, disappearing without a trace. The girl explains that one day Miyamoto simply stopped showing up and vanished without a trace. Vampire-san is stunned. She insists that by now, he must have resurfaced somewhere, but the girl shakes her head. There had been no sign of him, no luck in finding him at all. Right after his disappearance, the band ceased making music. All their videos were taken down, and their website vanished along with him. With a somber expression, the girl adds that she hopes Miyamoto is doing well, wherever he may be. Miss Vampire furrows her brows. Why would he disappear so suddenly? It makes no sense. A thought creeps into her mind. Could this be the reason Sasaki stopped making music? Later, Himika appears, holding out a drink. She got her the new white tomato mocha chip. Noticing Miss Vampire's distracted expression, she tilts her head and asks what's wrong, and weren't she looking forward to this? Vampire-san blinks, snapping out of her thoughts. Realizing the mood, the others chime in, urging her to get excited. With a small sigh, she decides to shake off the heavy atmosphere. After all, it's girls' night. Himika then eagerly tells them she has something special to show. With a proud grin, she reveals a life-sized panel of her favorite character. And she made it herself, and his birthday is coming up soon. She also shows off her bag, which is now adorned with countless kin badges of the same character. Furan, not to be outdone, declares that she has been training hard in a game and has now reached the global rankings. Both Himika and Miss Vampire are stunned. Miss Vampire, smirking, tells her that one day she will be fighting the best players in the world. After their excitement dies down, Himika and Furan turn to Miss Vampire, curiosity in their eyes. Himika starts and asks how things are going on her side. Miss Vampire exhales and tells them everything, the entire situation with Sasaki, Miyamoto, and the sudden disappearance. As they listen, they nod in understanding. She just wants him to cheer up. Himika, deep in thought, suddenly speaks up. Then they should look for Miyamoto. Furan takes it a step further. That they should just hire a detective. Miss Vampire thinks it's a good idea, but they fall into silence. Himika points out that since he went into hiding voluntarily, he likely doesn't want to be found and must have a good reason for staying hidden. She then asks if Miss Vampire knows anything that might cheer Sasaki up. Excitedly, she responds that she will excite him, but they press her further, asking if she has anything else. She recalls that he plays some game about tofu, and Furan immediately recognizes it as the story revolves around tofu fighting to become natto. Miss Vampire then wonders aloud if she should gift him natto, but quickly hesitates, questioning whether something sticky like that would actually cheer him up. They continue thinking of other possibilities. She knows that Sasaki doesn't dislike bands or the idea of forming a new one, and she remembers how much she likes the sweet fragrance he gives off when he listens to music. They ask if she is thinking about Sasaki, and her expression makes it painfully obvious. Her thoughts drift to how lonely he must have felt when the friend he used to hang around with suddenly left. The receptionist informs her that Sasaki hasn't been there today either and hands her a drink ticket. She is stunned. This is the third day in a row without seeing him, and the mere thought of not seeing him soon makes her feel like she might die. Then the receptionist hands her a USB drive, explaining that the guys from 38 gave it to her before disbanding. They used it for live concerts, and it contains nothing but pure, unreleased music, no lyrics. Sasaki had told her to get rid of it, but the receptionist believes Miss Vampire should have it instead. Confused, she stares at the USB drive blankly. This is unreleased music from Sasaki and Miyamoto, songs without lyrics. The receptionist urges her to listen to it at least once before throwing it away. She plugs it in, and the music begins to play. A pleasant feeling of excitement washes over her as she listens, and she wonders what kind of voice Miyamoto had and what his habits were when singing. But to Sasaki, Miyamoto is nothing more than an empty seat now, if he were to find someone who could take Miyamoto's place. Her mind flashes back to the words of that girl and Eo-kun. Flustered, she thinks of making Sasaki smile from the bottom of his heart, just like he did in that picture he once showed her, to help him move forward. Without hesitation, she runs to Eo. Panting, she looks him in the eyes and pleads with him to teach her how to sing.
Here I am,